Okay, I think we'll wait just a couple more minutes for a few more people to join in. Looks like they're still coming in. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, so the point of this presentation is to go over the new challenges facing companies now that they're working from home a little more. What we're going to go through is talk about what we've seen, what we've come across, things that we are now that there's a different dynamic in the workforce. One thing I'll say, as you can probably tell already, this is a all right. Let's wait a few more moments just for a couple more people that are coming online, and we'll try and get this started on time. All right, here we go. Let's get this underway. Okay, so what's the point of this webinar? This webinar is to talk about the new things that we're seeing in our customer workforce now that there's more people working from home. There's more things that are coming online that are new, I won't say challenges, but basically new things to look out for that are in your workforce. So we wanted to kind of take that next level. People are now working from home. That step is done. Now this is sort of like phase two. All right, now that people are working from home, what do we do now? What do we look for? One thing I will say, and it's probably pretty obvious, that this is a brand new webinar, so just please be a little patient. There might be a couple things that I might fumble around on, and I apologize. I'll try and be as timely as possible. All right, and so with that, let's get started. All right, first off, who are we? So we're Braver Technology. We do IT work. Our goal is to basically make your life as easy as possible. We have friendly staff. We've been around for over 30 years now. All of our engineers are a minimum of level 2, level 3 engineers, so which means that they can do the most high end of work. Our goal is to get your problem fixed first time that you're on the call, so that the only problem that you have is remembering your password. Alright, so we're going to kind of go over three general areas of discussion. So first off is how things are working now. So what does your remote workforce look like right now? What should it look like right now? And how should your users be up and running? Next thing we're going to talk about are the new challenges that are in place and the new security problems and the solutions in place now that there is more of a robust remote workforce in place. Last thing we want to talk about is what's next? What's on the horizon? What happens after everybody gets back to the office? All right, so what now? The one thing that I think we probably don't appreciate as much as we should in our area is that the day and age that we're in right now makes it very lucky for us that we can actually do this remote work. Even as 5-10 years ago, this would not be as capable as it is now. We didn't have the infrastructure in place that we now have in place. So that's the awesome part and the good news. It's kind of interesting. In the Northeast, we have a bit of an advantage over some other parts of the country because we regularly prepare to work remotely anyways. This is kind of what we do. We know that we might have a potential for a hurricane or some kind of huge blizzard that's going to take us out for a few days at a time. So we already start preparing every single fall to work remotely, and that really helped us out. We have colleagues in different parts of the country that are kind of interesting that they had no disaster preparedness in place because they didn't have the same level of consistently of work outages that we tend to see in our region. So we're kind of lucky in that sense. However, working remote has its own risks. So, and obviously that's what we want to talk about today is what comes into play. All right, so what are we going to talk about? So basically this, a little part of this presentation is going to be part of our cybersecurity presentation. So you're going to see a little snippets of it here and there, and obviously this is one of the slides from it right here. But we're going to focus on this one part. We're going to focus on the remote user part. So one of the things that we want to talk about is the ability for users to work remotely. So there's different things that you can do to work remotely. There's some common applications like log me in, go to my PC, those type of applications that users are using, and they're using it successful. However, one of the things that we want to let our users know is that there is an alternative to doing this that's actually somewhat free. So you can set up an SSL connection between your remote computer and your office and actually get in. And it's just in most cases it's like a small one-time fee. Sometimes it's actually included in your firewall for free. So basically, see if that option is available with your IT provider. See if you can get into your computers and work remotely at no charge, because it is also a fairly secure way of getting in as well. It's also very fast. A lot of the users are see screens that they're used to working on, which is really nice. Next thing I want to talk about is the ability of hosted VoIP. So this falls into play of one of those things. There's a great technology that's here now that is huge for our clients base, or just the client base in general. So we obviously have a hosted VoIP system that we sell, but what I'm going to go over are things that are common for all hosted VoIP systems, so no matter which system you're on. So number one, the great advantage is that you can actually take your desk phone right off your desk and bring it home and work as if you were in the office. If you call into our office, you'll never know that somebody's either in the office, at home, or whatever, and we've been doing that right from the beginning, and a lot of companies have. They basically can transfer calls, work on calls. You have your potential for a Bluetooth headset, whatever it may be. Then there's also the mobile soft phone application. So basically that's sort of a second line, or kind of, we never said that should be the primary phone, but it can definitely be a very robust phone that can work very regular. It allows you to take and receive calls on your office line from your mobile phone. So that's been really huge. So what we're running into a lot is that we're calling into an office and they're saying, well, yeah, that person's now working remote. We're like, okay, great, can you transfer us over? They're like, well, no, I can't, because they're using their cell phone. Well, that's not a great look for any clients trying to call in and get in touch with you. They want that instant gratification. So this solution works really well. You can even use it in a web browser. Because it's hosted, you never really miss a call. It's always working. Internet outage, power outage, anything like that works seamlessly. And then the voicemails actually get transcribed to text. So not just a WAV file attachment that you listen to. It's actually the actual voicemails right in the email itself, which is spectacular. Most of the time these systems are also a cost saving. So just keep that in mind, that this could be a huge cost saving. So it could be a multiple phase benefit for a lot of companies. All right, next, so this is, sort of like we're on Zoom now. So Zoom, GoToMeeting, Microsoft Teams, Uber Conference. So these are great tools that are just really robust, and what they're able to do. One of the questions that we tend to get, especially with Microsoft Teams, because Microsoft's doing a lot of advertising, is when do I use which solution? Which one's the best? So I'm going to lump Zoom, GoToMeeting, and Uber Conference into kind of like the same category. We'll put those in the same bucket. And there's other meeting software that are very similar. Well, what they do is exactly what we're doing now. A webinar, they're spectacular on it. A quick group conference call, they work great on that. Teams is also good for a quick group conference call. Teams is not going to be good for a webinar. I know they're trying to build that infrastructure out, but it's still not there. But Teams is going to be really good for more robust collaboration. So there's a chat feature in it. There's a file sharing feature. There's calendar meetings. There's groups. There's all sorts of shared features. We're going to go through Teams in future webinars and what it can do. But basically, the gist of it is, it's good, but also with that is also a more complex setup. So it's going to take more learning and more involvement from your users. So if you just want to do quick meetings, one of the other options is probably your best option. If you want to get into a real group collaboration, then Teams is definitely the way to go. I think the biggest question you might have on this slide is why, if both people are working remote and they're both on the video conference, Why do they both have masks on in this picture? I can't answer that question because it's a stock image. Alright, so one of the things that we have available for you is a free acceptable use policy. So basically what we're looking at is your current infrastructure should have a whole bunch of acceptable use policies for mobile phones, Wi-Fi, computers, technology, all of that. So they should have those templates in place. And if you don't, reach out to us. We're more than happy to give you some templates that you can use for your company. But also what we put together is this remote access policy. So now this is another policy in place that you should have. Now that your workers are working remote, they should really have this remote access use policy in place. Again, we can send you this template that you can modify and make your own, but you want to have some kind of guidelines in place of saying, okay, what's appropriate during the work environment and during the work day? What should people be working on? All right. So let's start talking about some of the security issues that we're running into play here. So one of the key things to know is that the reason that we have an issue is because the hacker environment as a whole is a very profitable environment. There are companies that are very large, they employ people, those people have office hours, they have quotas, they have agendas, they have everything that you would have at a fine working business. These guys need to meet that. So their job is to actually hack into your infrastructure and make money. So it's important to know that there's a live person on the other end trying to do this. It's no longer the case where it's just like a random robot or a random person just trying to get into your network. They're literally trying to work on this on the day, and this is their job. This is what they get paid to do. So the other thing to know is that this happens to companies of every size. So every single company is prone to being hacked or socially engineered to some form, which it just basically means that all you can do is try and make it as difficult as possible for them to get in. You're never going to entirely stop them. I have Google Plus up on the screen. This one's kind of interesting in that Google Plus was a site that they were trying to use to try and compete with Facebook. Google Plus had such a security breach, they literally shut the whole thing down. They said, you know what, it's not worth us having it. So talking about Facebook really quick, I don't know if enough people realize that Facebook has been attacked several times and they constantly get attacked. So why would somebody care about Facebook? So basically the gist with the Facebook data is that there's a couple things. One, if somebody gets your Facebook password, there's a couple of things. Number one, that password, a lot of times people are creatures of habit. So they use that same basis of a password for other applications that they try and get into, including their office computer. So let's say they have a habit of using their cat's name or their kid's name or their dog's name. Chances are they're going to use that same name in their company password. So now the hackers have a basis to go on. They're like, okay, their password probably at least has this word in it. Now, again, they get into the Facebook. Maybe that doesn't seem like that big of a concern from you on the business level, but it kind of is, because on their Facebook is typically going to be where they work. It's going to be information about where they work. So now what happens is once they get into Facebook, I now have a basis of their password. I also know where they work. Well, guess what? I can probably guess their username. Their username is going to be first initial, last name, first name, last initial, first name, last name, some form of that. So now I have a good infrastructure to start going after that work environment. The other thing from a personal level on Facebook you have to worry about is there's a lot of data on Facebook. So let's say that I was able to get into somebody's Facebook account. Well, chances are they're going to be doing some kind of banking at some kind of institute that's either local or national. So I'm going to start taking that information and I'm going to go into places like Chase or Bank of America or Best Buy or any of those Target. And what am I going to do? I'm going to go in and first I'm just going to try the same username and password to see if it just works. If that doesn't work, maybe I'm going to go through the security questions on the forgot password part of it. So what are those security questions going to ask me? They're going to ask me what street I grew up in, who was my first grade teacher, what town was I born in, all those general questions that we're used to. Guess what the answer to all those questions are located? Pretty much all located right in Facebook. So we're going to have a good basis to be able to hack into somebody's life once you get into a Facebook account. So this is what the actual, these are actual data breaches that have happened, and as you can see, there's 420 million Facebook accounts alone, but those aren't it. Like, look at Capital One is in there. You're gonna get other programs in there. Microsoft's in there with 44 million. So there's other ones that are broken into on a regular basis that you just don't hear about and you don't know. Like DoorDash, that's 5 million. Again, you're probably going to use a similar password for DoorDash that you use for something else. So that's what we really want to worry about in these data breaches and what what's happening. So social engineering is sort of like that next level. So now that you have some of that information, what do you do with it? So I'll give a kind of a general, very, very top level scenario or case in point. So let's say there's a construction of a new building, and that so that construction is typically going to make some kind of website news process. Somebody's going to announce it somewhere. So what is going to happen now is basically that news site is going to say, hey, this building's going up. Well, if I'm doing some social engineering hacking, what I'm going to do is maybe call the general contractor for that building, and I'm going to say, hey, yeah, I just wanted to see if we could build a quote on the plumbing or maybe the electrical for this building. And the general contractor is going to say, no, thank you. We already have our contractor in place. And you're as a social engineer, I'm going to say, oh, well, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's good. Hey, can I just ask you who you used? And they're going to say, yeah, we used XYZ Electrical. I'm going to say, all right, you know what? They're a great firm. They're really, really good, and I assume they're going to be starting the job soon. They're like, yep, yeah, we're building out now. Okay, great. I'm going to hang up. Now I'm going to call XYZ Electrical. And I'm going to say, hey, yeah, I'm calling from such and such building, pretending to be the general contractor. And I'm going to pretend to be the general contractor and say, yeah, hey, listen, thank you very much. I'm glad you guys are doing this project for us. We're really excited for you to get going. I'm just looking for timelines on when you guys think you guys are going to get started and what your milestones are. And the person on the other end is going to say, oh, well, our first milestone is we're going to do the rough installation. Then you say, oh, that's great. When do you plan on the rough installation to be done? Well, we plan on the rough installation to be done on June 13th. Okay, great. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to process this on our end, and I'm going to say, and this is still the social engineer talking, we're going to process on our end and make sure that we have a check ready for you. Can you just tell us the expected amount of that so I can send it over to AP? And the person's going to say, yeah, well, we're expecting, $1,233,000. So what am I going to do as a social engineer? So I'm going to call up the general contractor on June 12th and say, hey, listen, just want to let you know we're just about done with phase 1. We're going to be preparing. I'm going to send you an invoice for it. I just want to let you know that it's going to be for $1,233,000, just like we agreed upon. This is the I'm going to send you an invoice, and this is also the wire transfer information that I want to send you on where we need to send the check. We need to send it there because right now with COVID-19, nobody's in our office, so we're doing wire transfers instead. Perfect scenario for playing into what's going on today. And so what's going to happen, the general contractor, of course, is going to wire the money to the wrong location, in which case it's going to be transferred to the Bitcoins and gone altogether. So that might seem a little far-fetched, like it couldn't happen, but guess what? Something similar to that did happen to the state of Colorado. That actually did wire a bunch of money to the middle of nowhere for a town that did not get constructed, and this happens unfortunately on a regular basis. You guys have also probably seen a more popular one which has to do with the Shark Tank star. Again, socially engineered their office and talked them into doing a wire transfer to an area that didn't exist just because they were able to get enough information from them to pretend that there was something legit going on. Okay, and again, because people are working remote now, it actually gives the person on the social engineering side a lot easier way to say, yeah, because we're not in the office, this is why we have to do this. And it's very viable. it makes sense. Some other ones that we're seeing, I'll go into really quick, is direct pay. So this is, again, what we're seeing is that because you no longer have the ability for one person to go over to somebody else's office or somebody's desk and say, hey, did you send this to me? What you're seeing is a lot more email scam, a lot more social scam. So what's happening is people are sending out an email saying, hey, yeah, can you do this for me? The person on the other end of the email, instead of calling or getting up on their desk or talking to them, is replying back via email. But once you start replying back via email, there's no confidence that who you're replying to is the actual person. This is an example of another really common one where people are sending bogus emails about payroll, saying, hey, I changed my bank, can you just update my payroll to have it go to my new bank? We see this on a regular basis, and this is an actual sample. The names are changed to protect the guilty on this one. Okay, the other thing and there's no good solution for this one, I'll be honest with you, because there's going to be a constant battle between marketing and security, and it's just there's no winning on either end. But basically, one of the things to realize is that your website, for the most part, is probably going to have almost everything I need to socially engineer you. And what do I mean by that? Typically, you're going to have the names of the people that work in your environment, so I know who I have to impersonate when I'm calling a vendor or a client. You also have a list of clients on your website that you're really proud to support and proud to promote. Well, now I know who I can pretend to be as a client. And then also you typically have vendors because you want your clients to know what vendors you serve. So basically now I have a list of all your vendors. So it's really easy, unfortunately, for me to socially engineer what is going on in your environment. All right. So one of the things that I want to bring you aware of is our security tips. So we send out security tips every single week, and basically it's what we're seeing in the industry and what we're coming across in the industry and what we want you to keep an eye out for. They're all really quick reads. They don't take very long. It takes just a few minutes and just kind of keeps you up to date on what's going on. So basically, if you're not on our security tips, go through our contact page, let us know you want to sign up for them. We'll start sending them to you. That's all we'll send to you. But basically, it's a regular update. We also have ones that we've been updated specifically during the COVID-19. We have a whole bunch that are more specific, sort of like this webinar, saying, hey, these are the new things that we're seeing that people are taking advantage of. Okay. So let's go on to our next section. So one of the things that we're finding as well is that people are working on unnormal hours, and so they may have kids at home where they didn't have kids at home before. They may have to do home education and stuff like that. So basically, people are working at different hours than they normally would. What we've done on our part is we've extended our normal business hours to try and accommodate that, to try and work with our clients as much as possible. The other thing that's happening is that the hackers are also expanding their normal business hours as well. So they're doing things on the off hours that now they're seeing people. So it's almost like their business hours have expanded, and they're now able to do more things because they're able to do more phishing. So you might see them actually try and get you a little earlier or a little later, thinking that it's a little that they're trying to catch you a little off guard from your normal routine. Next thing is, and this is a big one, is make sure you have two-factor authentication set up for everything that you can set it up for. So this might be your email, might be your application, might be your SSL into your office, might be your bank, whatever it may be. If they have two-factor authentication, definitely set it up. If they don't have two-factor authentication, definitely ask them to get it set up and push them to get it in place. This is one of the biggest security benefits that you can have that's absolutely free. Is it foolproof? Definitely not foolproof, but it's a lot bigger hurdle. And essentially, you know, when it comes to hacking, you're not looking to be invulnerable. You're just looking to be the tougher target, so they go to the easier target. And two-factor authentication is a big plus in that step. Okay, so let's start talking about the home users themselves. So basically, When everybody first started working remote, it was a mad rush to get everybody up online. Like I said, a lot of our clients already had equipment to work remote, but some of them didn't, and so they had to start rushing and buying equipment. Well, everybody started doing that, so then the equipment ran out. So now what happened? Well, people started using their home computers to get to the office because they have to do something. And all of those things kind of started contributing to new set of concerns that we have to worry about. So number one is, what's on your user's network at home is now on your network. So basically, when they're working from home, they're now on your network. This poses a new security risk for us. So now, it's not possible for you or anybody to control everybody's home network. So what we've seen is that computers at home that don't have antivirus installed at all, or if they had antivirus, it's not up to date. It was the trial version that expired. No malware protection, no security updates, no patches, not monitored for malicious activity at all. So this brings up a whole new concern of devices and computers on your network that are not controlled and not monitored, and it becomes quite an issue for us. We're trying to, we've tried to push with our clients to at least get the antivirus up to date on their home users network. But as this goes along, if people are working remotely, probably the best option is to actually get company-issued devices at home that can be monitored, can be patched, can be managed, and up to date. So at people's home computers, again, they don't have the same level of security set up on their home devices that you have at your office. So essentially what we want to do is make sure you have a they have a screensaver set. When they walk away from their computer to go get lunch or whatever, everybody else at the house is now have access to that computer. You want to make sure that's locked, and make sure it's locked when they leave it alone. The other problem that we have, especially for the people who work in sensitive environments, now you have one family member who might be working in the kitchen, another one might be working in a dining room, a kid might be doing homework in the living room. Now we have a whole new aspect of confidentiality. So you have a person who's doing HR and who's talking in some kind of confidential information, or maybe a doctor that's talking to a patient or anything like that. You have to worry about who else can hear that conversation that's in that house. What other information? Now your home worker is inadvertently sharing company information or patient information or whatever legal information with somebody else in that house that is not qualified to handle that. Next thing is that, a lot of the computers, the people at home, they use weaker passwords at home, and they don't have any central management of forcing those passwords to be complex. So what we do at the corporate level is we force passwords to be complex. We force passwords to change on a regular basis. We force the system not to remember previous passwords. You can't do any of that on somebody's home computer. It's not managed by you. You don't own it. So what happens, those passwords end up being weak. And remember, if they get into that one computer, they're into your network. They're now on your company. Whereas before, if they got into the person's home computer, well, that stinks for that person, for that home user, but it wasn't a company problem. Now it's becoming a company problem. Those passwords are now an issue for you. So what you want to try and encourage them is use really strong passwords. One other trick is that a long password is better than a short password that's complex. So what I mean by that is that you could have an 8-character password with random character generations, and that's pretty complex. That's pretty secure. But what's even more secure is an actual long phrase. So like a long phrase would be like, I love the summer of 2020. So now you're working on a longer password, and especially if you start putting in random characters in there, it's even better. And what that means is that a brute force attack is going to have a tougher time on that, because the longer the password, the tougher it is for them to crack and get into. Alright, so the other thing that we're running into is people storing company information on their local computers. Please try not to do that. We have no way of backing those up. No IT provider has a way of getting at them, backing them up, making sure they're valid. If those files get updated and something happens to them, you're going to lose a week or 2 weeks worth of data on your system. Obviously, if the home computer gets compromised, those files now become accessible to the internet. The other thing that you have is you could have multiple copies of the same file being updated by multiple people, 2 or more people, that are now out of sync. So basically, Try not to do that. Store the files on a central location, just as if you were at the office, so that they are backed up and shared correctly. File sharing software. So one of the things that we see as well is that people are trying to skip a couple steps and using things like Dropbox and stuff like that. And Dropbox is a great product, but it's not really enterprise level. It doesn't have that enterprise level security by default. So really, it's not the greatest sharing program to use. You really want to use something that's enterprise level, that's monitored and maintained by your IT professional, your IT department. Make sure that it's at a level where the security is in place, backups are in place, it's been tested, especially for those of you that have confidential information that require regulations. This is a huge problem because Dropbox does not meet a lot of the regulations that you might need for your patient data or your client data. And just in time, Citrix ShareFile, which is one of the major programs, was recently hacked. So lo and behold, right in time for this presentation, and Citrix is one of the bigger players out there. They typically are pretty good, and they have a bunch of security concerns that are now, I shouldn't say they were hacked. They have the potential of being hacked. There's no reported cases right now, but there was a big security vulnerability exposed with them. Okay, let's talk about your home network. So again, now we have the problem that the home network's on the computer network. We have to worry about information going there, but guess what else is on the home network that can sneak across all the other devices that are literally on your home network? These are all smart devices that are on your users' home networks that you have the concern of them hopping over to your corporate network. So again, we're worried about all these things because these things are devised to talk to each other. In the home environment, it makes it really easy. When you're on your TV, you want to be able to pull some images off your computer. When you're on your PlayStation, you want to be able to send images over here. They're made to be more of a collaborative work environment, but what that means is that it's breaking down security barriers in your network. And same thing along with the Wi-Fi. So we're only going to be as good as your home user's Wi-Fi now. So again, on the corporate level, we're putting in pretty strong Wi-Fi encryption, and we're making sure that people who are strolling by are not able to come in and take over the Wi-Fi. We're not in charge of the client's home network Wi-Fi, so neither are you. So basically, now you have to worry about the password encryption level that they have, the actual passwords themselves. Who did they give the passwords to? Did they give them to their friends when they had a cookout? Did they give them to the neighbors when they had a cookout? Who else has access into that network to get into your network? The other thing that we're seeing a lot of is that obviously people are at home. They're not going to buy a firewall for their home network. They're not going to spend $500, $1,000, $2,000 for a firewall for their home network. So they're just using the standard router that came with Fios or Comcast or Cox or whatever the Roadrunner, whatever the website provider might be. So now their firewall level is severely decreased over your company firewall level. So we now have that level of concern where now we have a whole layer of security that we have to worry about. Last thing that we have regarding this is basically the other thing that we have is potential for what we're calling internet vampires. But basically, kids are at home, families at home, everybody's at home, you're trying to work. Guess what they're doing? They're streaming all sorts of videos from all sorts of providers, and that's basically going to take away from the bandwidth. So now we're going to see issues as far as usability and performance on the side of the computers, and it's not because of the office computer, it's because of the home network, and the home network's just getting beaten up by all of these streaming services. Alright, one of the reports that we want to make available to you today is the top 10 ways that hackers get around your firewall and antivirus. So basically, if you go to this website right here, you can sign up, you'll get the report right away, and there's things that we want you to take a look at and that are available for you to go through to make sure that you kind of lock the basic things on your network. Make sure you're not missing the top level easy stuff that are protected. Alright, so we talked about the hosted VoIP and how awesome it is and how you could bring it everywhere. That's great, but there is a problem with any hosted VoIP and even mobile phone stuff like that, and this all has to do with 911. So what happens with 911 is the 911 is associated to the phone number, and that phone number is associated to an address. Well, the address is typically the company's address. So what happens is the phone at home, if someone would dial 911 on it, it's very rare that it would actually give the home address. This is a huge concern. So number one thing that we have up here is that you can test your address. If you dial 933, it'll tell you which address is assigned to that phone number. Again, most of the time it's going to be the work address. So what you want to do is make sure everybody in your family knows that this phone should not be used for 911. And you may want to even just put the phone away when you're not working, just to make sure nobody accidentally in an emergency tries to use it for 911, because they're just not going to go to the right place. So again, it's a new concern that we're having, because it used to be that people would just take their phones home every once in a while, but now their phones are there all the time. So again, you have a young kid or a family member who's in an emergency, they might just grab any phone that's available. We need to make sure that they know not to use that one for 911. Alright, so we're in a Zoom meeting right now, and it's probably been, you've probably seen the reports that Zoom has been compromised and has security issues and so forth, and it's to be expected. I mean, Zoom for the most part is free, and the paid versions you can pay for, but basically it wasn't designed with the pandemic in mind. So they didn't start off with all these security features in mind. They started off with, hey, let's start with a low-cost free conference session. So here's a quick list of some security best practices to go on, but we're actually go one step further. We actually have a whole best practice pamphlet that we can send you. So basically, if you go into our contact page and just ask us, we'll send you best practices for securing your Zoom meetings and the steps that you could take. Pretty easy stuff, but basically just a one by one saying, okay, let's make sure we do this, let's make sure you do this, make sure you do this. Once you do it once, you're done. So go ahead and reach out. More than happy to send that over to you. The other thing I want to make sure you're aware of is that things are changing on a regular basis. So what we do is we obviously keep our blogs up to date on what's going on, and they're updated a little more now than they ever were before. So basically what we're doing is keeping it updated with relevant information of what's going on today, what's happening. So I encourage you to take a regular look at our blogs and what we have that we've come across, in whatever this week or whenever the blog is up there, and just update information, because things are coming out fast and furious right now. All right. Next thing I want to talk about is is getting back to the office. So basically what we're seeing now is the slow progression of people coming back to the workplace and back to the office. And there's new things that are coming in place. So basically what we did is we put together a checklist that you can go through to get back to the office and get everything back in place. So we have the website up here. You can go and fill that out. It'll get you that instant access to this checklist. It's just an 11-step checklist that tells you, okay, what should we be doing right now? Where should we be going? What things should we be doing to prepare for people getting back to the office? Because that is the next step, is to say, okay, now we're starting to get back into a work environment where we might have first wave of people in the office or some people in the office, and basically now that everybody's disassociated themselves, okay, let's prepare to get back again. The other thing that we want to offer to everybody, if they want, is some people have taken advantage of the PPP loan, and now obviously you have to start keeping track of expenses and everything like that in a certain way. So we actually have a loan forgiveness spreadsheet that'll help you keep track of that when you're going through. So obviously it's not a legal document, but it'll help you keep track of where you are in the expenses, what qualifies, what doesn't qualify. So again, if you want this, just reach out to us. More than happy to send it over to you. Okay, so that is basically the majority of things that we wanted to cover. So what we talked about so far is essentially how things should be working. What should you be doing so far in your network that you may or may not be doing now? Then also, what new challenges? What security issues, what security problems do we have, and what solutions did we go through on them? And the last one is, what's next? How do we get people back into the office or back into the work environment going through? The one thing I do want to make sure that you realize that the important thing is having a secure workforce is the most important thing you can have right now. There are people who are taking advantage of this as an opportunity to get into your system and expose those new vulnerabilities that are in place, and we need to now take a new level of security on what we're doing. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate everybody who attended today. And if you have any questions, obviously here's our contact information. We'll be doing more of these webinars as time permits, and obviously we're doing them a little more often now than with all the changes that are coming into play. But with that, thank you very much and have a great day.